Okay, in this video we're going to continue talking about the graphs of sine and cosine. Only I think you might find this easier than what we were doing last time. Here you're going to be given the graph and you want to find the formula, or perhaps you're given some information about the function and you want to find the formula. It turns out it's not quite as messy. The first thing you need to do though is decide whether to use a sine function or a cosine function, and theoretically you could use either one. But typically if the graph starts in the middle and either goes up or down, I'd probably use a sine. If the graph starts at either the maximum or minimum value, I'd probably use a cosine. Anyway, and recall some important features about the graph. I've written it for the sine of x, but this is true with cosine as well. Amplitude is absolute value of a, period is 2 pi over b, phase shift is negative c over b, and the vertical shift is d. Now, this is a nice way of looking at the period and phase shift in terms of your your pre-calculus transformations. Think of, let's just say you have sine of bx plus c. Couldn't you factor a b out and you get the sine of b times the quantity x plus c over b? Because this shows it pretty well in terms of two transformations. You start off with sine of x. Now if you take the graph of sine of x and you replace x with b times x, that's a horizontal shrink by a factor of b. Okay? So, if the period were 2 pi, when you shrink it by a factor of b, the period becomes 2 pi over b. You see? That's why it works that way. Furthermore, if you replace x here with x plus c over b, remember it's a replacement process, then that's a horizontal shrink. Now, a horizontal shift, I should say. Horizontal shift, if it's plus, that means it's to the left, which makes it a negative, right? So this would be a horizontal shift to the left of c over b units. And that's why the phase shift is negative c over b. So that's a nice way to think of it. Okay, anyway, you do need to know those properties. Okay, here we go. Let's suppose you want to find a formula for a sine function, period 4 pi, amplitude 10. That's not too bad. There's no phase shift or anything else. It's just period 4 pi and amplitude 10. So if you start off with the period, 4 pi is 2 pi over b, so that enables you to find b. b is 1/2. And then for the amplitude is a, absolute value of a, but there's no reflection, so a is just 10. There's your answer, 10 sine of x over 2. Okay, let's look at this one. Cosine function, period 30, amplitude 12, and a reflection across the x-axis. Okay, so the amplitude will be the absolute value of a, and since you have a reflection across the x-axis, a is negative 12, right? Period is 30, which is 2 pi over b. If you solve that for b, you get b equals pi over 15. By the way, this is really important. If you have a phase shift, you should always find the period first, or you should always find b first from the period, because when you use the phase shift to find c, you already have to have b before you can find c. Got it? So always find b before c. Anyway, the phase shift is negative 4. If you solve this for c, c is 4b. Since we already got b as pi over 15, you find that c is 4 pi over 15, so there's your answer. F of x equals negative 12 cosine pi x over 15 plus 4 pi over 15. Alright, let's try another one. Cosine function, period 20, amplitude 4, phase shift 2, vertical shift 12. Okay, that just means d is 12, right? A is 4. Now remember what I just got through saying. We're going to use the period to find b before we use the phase shift to find c. Anyway, the amplitude's 4. That means a is 4. Here we go. The period is 20, which is 2 pi over b. Solving that for b, you get b equals pi over 10. So now that you know b, you go to the phase shift. If the phase shift is 2, that means negative c over b is 2. That means c equals negative 2b. c is negative pi over 5. I've already mentioned this, that d is 12. So you put it all together. Whoops, shouldn't there be a 12 here somewhere? It should be plus 12, right? This is plus 12. Anyway, you get 4 cosine of pi over 10x minus pi over 5 plus 12. There you go. Okay, let's keep on going here. Let's suppose you have a graph now, and you want to find the equation. Would it be a sine or a cosine here? Which one would you use? I would use a sine because it starts in the middle. It doesn't appear like there's any phase shift, and there's no vertical shift. So that means that C is going to be 0, and so is D. We're going to have an amplitude the amplitude looks like 3, but it's also a reflection. So this is what I get. There's no vertical shift, so D is 0. There's no phase shift, so C is 0. But A is -3 because you have a sine function that's been reflected across the x-axis. The only thing left to find is the period. Now from here to here is half the period. It looks like half the period is 2 pi, doesn't it? This is about 6.28 approximately. Let's just call that 2 pi. So the whole period would have to be 4 pi. Again, I'm approximating. So B turns out to be 1/2. So then your final answer becomes -3 times the sine of x over 2, right? Not 1/2, sine of 1/2 x. All right. Anyway, let's keep on going here. How about this one? This one looks interesting. Would you use a sine or a cosine on this one? I'd probably use a cosine. Furthermore, there does appear to be a vertical shift here of 1/2. Do you see that? 1/2. So it looks like D is 1/2. If you use a cosine, then there's no horizontal shift. C is 0, but you're going to have like a little dotted line here. Let's see. Okay, so D is 1/2. Now, what would A be? If you use a cosine, it starts off on the bottom and it goes up. That means that there's a reflection. But what is the amplitude? From here to here is 1/2, right? So A becomes -1/2 because of the reflection. The period, let's see. The period is from here to here. That looks like 4. So 2 pi over B equals 4. That means B, if you solve for B, you get 1/2. So here's your answer. -1/2 cosine of pi x over 2 plus 1/2. Go ahead, hit the pause button, see if you can find equations for these two. I'll give you a hint on this first one. There is a phase shift on number 6. Okay, for number 6, you notice I would use a sine function. You agree? A sine function would be easier. Looks like a phase shift of 1/2. Now let's talk about the amplitude. Looks like 4, right? Now the period, if you're going from here to here, this is the period from here to here. It looks like the period is still about 6.28. It looks like the period is still 2 pi. Anyway, let's put all that together. Use a sine function. Like I said, it looks like A is 4. That's the amplitude. D is 0. There's no vertical shift. Like I said, the period appears to be 2 pi because I'm looking at from here to here. If you subtract this x coordinate minus this one, you get about 6.28. It's close enough. Let's call it. That means that B has to be 1, doesn't it? So then, and then your C value, your C is your horizontal shift. I get 1/2 for that. So you put it all together, I get 4 times the sine of x minus 1/2. Okay, now for this last one, we get this one here. There's definitely a vertical shift. Looks like about 10, doesn't it? Vertical shift of 10. It looks like it, but from the vertical shift, it looks like I'm going to use a negative cosine. You agree? Because it's on its lowest point. It looks like this distance from here to here is 2. So A is going to be -2. This is what we got so far. We're going to use a cosine. D equals 10. Furthermore, if you use a cosine, you're not going to have any horizontal shift, are you? Because this is the starting point. And then, like I said, A looks like -2. The period, however, we haven't talked about that yet. What does the period appear to be? From here, well, this is only half the period. They don't give you the whole graph. That's mean. From here to here looks like about 50 is half the period. So the whole period looks like it would be 100. 2 pi over B equals 100. That means B equals pi over 50. Put it all together, I get this. I get f of x equals -2 cosine pi x over 50 plus 10. Alrighty, well, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.